I must say it's very heartening having you intellectuals coming into the working class movement like this.
One has to do something.
True, brother, true. I see from your particulars you was at college in Oxford.
Yes, I was.
Yes, I was up there myself.
Oh, really?
Yes, I was at the Balliol Summer School, 1946. Very good toast and preserves they give you at tea time, as you probably know.
No, I didn't know it.
Watching you perform, and indeed watching you tonight and the sort of whole scope of what you've done, I wonder how you would have found this kind of fulfillment that you just talked about professionally. Had you been of another era when films weren't invented, in fact? I mean, what might you have been then? Would you have been the comic actor? Would you have been the classical actor? Would you have been the vaudevillian, or what?
Well, I don't know, you know. I always think back to what my old man said about being a road sweeper. I'm a good photographer. I could probably earn my living as a photographer.
Yeah.
I actually, you know, I'm turned pro now. You know, I can, you know, I do quite a lot of jobs as a photographer.
Yeah.
But honestly, Mike, I don't really know what I'd have done. Because my mother forced me to go forward, you know. I'd have probably ended up as a road sweeper, doing impressions of George Formby or something.
Saturday night on her city. Oh, what a time there's going to be. I haven't told her. She hasn't told me, but no, it's just the same. We don't do much spooning, but we will. You wait until we're moving. Saturday night on her.
This is Movie Tone. Geoffrey Shirley reporting. At a Variety Club of Great Britain luncheon, Shirley Ann Field got her Silver Heart Award for successes in 1960. Albert Finney voted the most promising newcomer. Nigel Patrick gets his as stage actor of 1960. Alfie Bass and Bill Fraser, joint ITV Personality of the Year. Lionel Bart, show business personality. And Billy Whitelaw, voted actress of 1960. And as film actor of 1960, Peter Sellers.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, may I say thank you very, very much indeed for this wonderful award, which I shall treasure. And I went to consult an acknowledged expert in this field, someone who has had several pamphlets on the subject published, Geraldo. And he said, be short, be sweet, be circumscribed. Which I am.
Peter Sellers' performance as the irascible trade union leader Fred Kite in I'm All Right, Jack established him as Britain's leading comedy film actor. Within 4 years and a dozen film hits later, the whole world would know Peter Sellers. He claimed to have no identity of his own outside of the characters he played, yet the real Peter Sellers did appear on film, his own film. He obsessively recorded his life on his own cameras. These films have never been shown before. They're an untold part of the Peter Sellers story. Sellers had owned state-of-the-art film cameras since he could first afford to buy them. From that moment on, he continually filmed his family, his friends, himself, or anything that took his fancy. Some films are snatched fragments, some are orchestrated. They represent another side of Sellers from the film star everyone knows.
Well, how do you do, sir? How very nice of you to call round. I hope you're interested in one of these super Isettas. They're absolutely tip-top. And I can assure you absolute economy in petrol consumption. Would you like to get in, sir? Please open the door. Just pull down, that's right. Open it up, and in you get. Try the driving position. I'm sure you'll find it absolutely first class. Absolutely. Now, just close the door, that's right. They're lovely little things, you know. Road holding is absolutely superb. Now, close the door, that's right, sir. Isn't it? You see, you get a lovely rear window, plenty of view. You see, you can see all around. And, I wouldn't climb on the back, sir, if I were you, please, because it's not actually intended for that. I should get down the front again if I were you. That's right, sir. Thank you very much indeed. And out you get. Well, I'm going in now to see to the projector, so I'll see you in just a few moments. Jolly good luck. Thank you very much. Close the door. Bye-bye. Oh, we nearly fell over. Well, please call again, sir, any time you're around this way. Hillwood Motors.
By the time of I'm All Right, Jack, he was living in a large house in the North London suburb of Whetstone. He dubbed the house St. Fred's and lived there with his children, Sarah and Michael, and his wife, Anne. He consolidated the success of I'm All Right, Jack with Two-Way Stretch, a genial caper typical of British film comedy of the time. Two-Way Stretch is written around Dodger Lane, a small-time villain running a variety of enterprises from his prison cell with the assistance of David Lodge and Bernard Cribbins.
7 o'clock? Oh, Harry's marvellous, and he always bang on time, winter or summer.
Look at that, they've sent ordinary milk again. They know we always have gold top.
Yeah, well, never mind, mate. Behind it, milk, butter, eggs, aye, French bread. Dodger? Dodger?
Huh?
Papers, Dodger?
Oh, ta. Close the window, mate. There's a bit of a George Ralph coming in.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dodge.
1 or 2 eggs, Dodge?
No, thank you, Jelly. I feel a bit empty after that trifle you knocked out last night.
Yeah, I told him to go easy on the sherry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dodger, mate. Didn't look all that rich to me.
Hello. I see the bottom's dropped right out of Colonial Cocoa. When you knock off any money, lads, never put it on a stock exchange. I tell you that for nothing.
Don't you worry, I won't.
We saw this advert in the Sunday Times for this manor house in Chipperfield. So we went out to have a look at it, and Peter decided there and then he had to have it. We did move a lot. I'm not quite sure why. I guess he got sick of wherever we were. I mean, I guess we lived in, I can't think how many, about 8 different houses, I guess. But he would get fed up with one, or it wasn't big enough or something. We lived in St. Fred's, which was a nice suburban house. And then we moved into this really ridiculous, huge mansion. He was living the life of a, shall we say, in inverted commas, a film star. I don't know, we had 4 gardeners and a nanny and butler and a cook and God knows what. I really never know what we were doing there. I'm not sure that Peter ever knew what we were doing there either. He actually had a whole wing that he had a dark room and a little cinema, and that was where he cut his films. But he liked the whole process from beginning to end.
Chipperfield Manor was a magnificent house. I'd drive down, and there was a toothbrush and pyjamas there all the time. I was unmarried and a razor. I spent most of my time there when I wasn't working, because Peter used to say, come down, come down. He liked to bounce off me. Yeah, he'd give dinner parties and say, tell them about when we... He would never tell it. I'd say, oh, not again. I began to feel like a court jester. He said, no, 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 no. Tell them about when we did this and that. Having been the squire at Chipperfield, he behaved like the squire. Certainly when he was in front of the people of the village. And he loved it. He loved all the trappings.
I remember the kitchen area, but a lot of the other areas are sort of, you know, we didn't really get to use. I mean, we lived in the kitchen, the playroom, our rooms upstairs. I had a little attic room where I had my trains. But the dining room and that, we'd eat perhaps Sunday lunch with him. We'd all get together and eat Sunday lunch there. But other than that, it would be dinner parties, which we were usually ousted from before. I remember Christmases here, a couple of Christmases here, putting the Christmas trees together. And snow, I remember this all covered in snow.
When we moved into there, he'd done all the boating films and The Mouse That Roared. And that's where he did The Millionaires. And he did Lolita when we were living there. Yes, I guess he became an international star. And we did have good times, but the bad times really started when we moved into that house.
She sang it as she tucked me in when I was 93.
Who was that bum?
Ying tong, 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 ying tong,
in a light pole. Keep that up, keep up.
Keep up,
lad. Ying tong, ying tong, ying tong, ying tong, in a light pole, lad.
Ying tong, ying tong, ying tong, in a light pole, lad.
By 1960, the name Peter Sellers had reached the other side of the Atlantic. And when he arrived for a promotional tour, even the Goons were on the radio.
An unpretentious, medium-sized young actor with the face of anonymity and the voice of every man is Britain's newest film sensation. And he may even be crowding his idol, Sir Alec Guinness, with his mixed bag of characterizations and multiple roles. He's ready to make a film in Hollywood, but not make one of the most accomplished actors of our time, with an unerring instinct for the subtlest nuance of character. The most brilliant, ironic actor since Alec Guinness, whom he emphatically transcends.
Well, of course, I'm very proud to be compared with Guinness. Firstly, because I have great, great admiration for him as an actor. And secondly, because he's a very close friend of mine. And I think that I'm very proud to know him and to have worked with him.
And to be compared with him?
Well, as Alec might say himself, one is very pleased to be compared with anybody, really. One never knows.
I'm back to the impressions again.
There were 4 pictures of Peters playing in New York at the time. 2 films belonged to one company, British Lion. 2 films belonged to the Walter Reed Company. He was an enormous hit, you know. We walked into the Hampshire house. We had the penthouse, and there were about 50 fellas waiting for us in the room. It was just by the door, and an American picked up a white telephone and said, "The property has arrived."
The word was that this guy was just terrific. Caused us to feel we were lucky if we could get him. And it turned out that Peter had an availability, but not much, because he was so busy going from one picture to another. And we were asked if we could shoot his part in the picture in 14 consecutive days, he could work us in.
James B. Harris, with his director Stanley Kubrick, had bought the rights to Vladimir Nabokov's controversial novel about the obsessive relationship between a middle-aged man and a 14-year-old girl called Lolita. Sellers was cast in the small role of Quilty, a playwright who is a rival for Lolita's affections.
We wanted to keep a very low profile during the shooting of that film. Everybody seemed to be interested in how we were going to do Lolita and what was it going to be in terms of censorship and what did the girl look like and how were we going to portray her. And we felt if we just got away from Hollywood and got to England, a place that we spoke the language, that we could keep a much lower profile there. Every Sunday we used to go out to Chipperfield and visit with Peter and Annie and all his friends. The Bolting brothers were there, and Graham Stark and his wife, and David Lodge, and it became sort of a ritual that we looked forward to.
After casting Sellers, Kubrick built up the character of Quilty from Nabokov's original conception into a powerful, shadowy figure who haunts the film in several guises. His discovery of Sellers' ability to improvise meant that most of the role was created on the set. As he wrote later,
"He was the only actor that I knew who could really improvise. Improvisation is something useful in rehearsal, to explore a role, but most actors, when they improvise, stray into a sort of repetitive hodgepodge, which leads them down a dead end. While Sellers, by contrast, even when he wasn't on form, after a time fell into the spirit of a character and just took off. It was miraculous."
Gee, I'm just dying for a drink. I'm just dying to have a drinky.
You're dying anyway, Quilty.
Jeez. All my friends always put that smokies out in the drink. So unsanitary.
Quilty, I want you to concentrate. You're going to die. Try to understand what is happening to you.
You are either Australian or a German refugee. This is a Gentile's house. You better run along.
Think of what you did, Quilty, and think of what is happening to you now.
Gee, that's a darling little gun you got there. That's a darling little thing. How much a guy like you want for a darling little gun like that?
Read this.
What's this, the deed to the ranch?
It's your death sentence. Read it.
You would seem to be interested in pursuing as many different characters as you can possibly play. That's right, that's right. What about a perfectly straight hero, a romantic part, as it were?
No, not for me. I leave that to the Young Hansa Brigade. No, I prefer playing the non-romantics. I mean, it's no good trying to play hello, darling parts, you know.
It would come out rather funny, you think?
Oh, yes, it'd be useless. I was terribly self-conscious, and it wouldn't work. I know, it just wouldn't work. My next film, which would probably be with Sophia Loren. Now, this is a part where the amour comes into it, but in a different way, so it wouldn't give me the same problems, I think.
remember the garden parties. I remember Stanley Kubrick here. They would have been doing Lolita, I would think, or planning Lolita. That was where I took an instant dislike to Sophia Loren. She's all dressed in yellow with a sort of yellow ostrich feather, what do you call it, shawl, wrap. And I reckon that she looked like a chicken, I think it was, at the time. I think it was presumably the colour of her skin, I don't know. Good Mediterranean tan, anyway. I wasn't at all impressed.
Why do you think you took a dislike to her?
Well, I'd say in hindsight because of the ructions she was causing in the family. And somehow I must have cottoned on or figured out that she was the root of most of it, and I'm sure that's got a lot to do with it.
He couldn't stop talking, saying, "How can it happen? Me? Look at me, ugly, you know, and I'm working with Sophia Loren." I said, "You're an actor, you know, enjoy it." Ah, he kept on. Anyway, he brought her down to the house, and she sat opposite. I can even remember what she wore. I'd never seen it so cleverly done. She was a very well-built lady, as we all know. And she managed to have like 2 different coloured scarves, crossways, with bare shoulders and tied with a big bow at the back. And when you're looking at a lady like that, I mean, it's very difficult not to keep dropping your eyes and imagine how it's all happening, you know. And she was terribly interested in the Cockney rhyming slang that Peter used to use. She thought it was very funny. And she kept asking me about things like one expression she thought was very funny. It's the sort of thing when one Cockney fellow would say to the other, "See that bird over there? She's showing out to me," which meant she was giving him the come on sign. No, Loren thought that was very funny. Just showing out.
Are you married?
To science.
Science is impotent without money. Take another wife.
Science is my bride.
I wouldn't be jealous of her.
Does the question of competition arise?
It does. I want to marry you.
I see.
Well, answer me.
It's not so simple to answer.
He was cast opposite this stunningly beautiful woman, which she was, and still is, but he just got totally carried away with it. And he became besotted by her. I'm not sure if the feeling was returned, but I mean, he felt it was, and it was very genuine to him. He then treated me as his mother, which I should allow him to do whatever he wanted to do. And he would come to me with his problems about Sophia. It got very difficult.
I can remember them rowing before I can remember why. I just remember the noise of them rowing as opposed to what they were actually rowing about, and usually inconsequential, which it was with him. You know, you could say hello the wrong way, and that could get you a tirade if you weren't enthusiastic enough at the right time. And that was sort of when we moved up a notch from Holidays in Pevensey Bay. It was all chop and change, up and down. By the time I was 12, I'd been to about 8 or 9 different schools. I mean, the shortest period, I think, was for the spring term at one school here locally. So the Sophie Loren thing was brewing, and it was all going on, and his career was getting larger, and he was busy either promoting or doing that and off around the world. He as a person, you know, he already reached the point where he couldn't walk out the door without being recognised, and I think all that was overtaking him. We were sort of disappearing slowly into the distance.
did see Mrs. Griffith Williams last night at the play, only it was so lousy we left before the end. Well, you know, before the fire. She wanted to talk about the job. You see, apparently her husband's word is law on the committee, and I suppose that's really good news, isn't it?
Yes, very.
You don't sound very pleased about it.
Oh, I expect I will when I get used to it.
Get used to it? What have you got to get used to?
You having an affair?
What? Jeannie.
None of that. I don't want any of that.
Look, I'm not having an affair with Mrs. Griffith Williams in the way you mean.
Well, that's smashing then, isn't it? We don't have to talk about it
Yes,
anymore.
of course we have to talk about it.
No, we don't. I don't want to hear about it. It has nothing to do with me. You do as you want, but don't tell me about it because I don't want to know, see?
Look, all I'm trying to do, Jeannie, is to apologize to you and
It's
to
no
promise
use
you...
apologizing, John. Talking and promising and God knows what. Do what you want to do. Only don't keep up this talk, talk, talk. I've enough to put up with without that.
Yes, but what else can I do? I mean, all I can do is to try to tell you, isn't it?
And you tell me about it and it's all right. Until next time. Will you listen to me? Perhaps you think I don't know you. Perhaps you think I'm bloody blind. But I know the look you get when you start fancying a bit on the side. Well, I don't mind that part anymore. I just don't want to hear about it, understand?
But that's what I keep trying to tell you. There is nothing to hear.
You think you can get rid of what you do by coming and telling me about it afterwards. Is that it?
No.
Well, you can't. Go off and do it if you want to, as long as you don't tell me. I couldn't care less what you get up to. Just give me my housekeeping every week and stay out of my way. And get that job while you're about it. You may as well.
Every character he played, he would bring home. He'd come home as the Indian doctor, or can't remember the name of the character, or some little Welsh man, or, you know, it's very strange and very unnerving. Bit like living on the edge of a precipice. You weren't quite sure. You weren't quite sure. You weren't quite sure whether he'd be absolutely wonderful when he came home or if he'd be absolutely ghastly. And you'd have some sort of terrible row.
You feel that there might be something of yourself in each of these characterizations?
Well, no. I think this is inevitable that something of yourself does come through. However much you try to hide it, there's always just that odd thing that creeps in. At least I can see it always. So I'm, you know, like most people I've met, I don't think I've ever seen anything of mine yet that I've ever been satisfied with, so I never will be.
Do you make any conscious effort to submerge your personality when you attack a new character?
Yes, completely submerge it. Every effort I can possibly make.
He had just seen Only Two Can Play, and he was despondent, had no belief, no faith in it. In fact, he really hated it. Now, John and I had seen the film, and we were utterly confident that it was one of the best films that likely to come out of the British studios that year.
Only Two Can Play was a controversial examination of adultery with a screenplay by Sellers' friend Brian Forbes. It was the first time Sellers had been cast as the lead in an X-rated film.
And we said, look, Peter, if you want to sell your percentage of the film, John and I are quite prepared to buy it off you. Thinking that this would really make him think, oh, if they're prepared to do that, then it's good. But we paid him, I think, by comparison to what he would have got, perhaps a quarter. I think we paid him £25,000 for his percentage of the film.
I fell in love with an Englishman, a sweet and simple Singlishman. No Romeo as I had planned, but oh, the thrill when he holds my hand.
He dragged me out for a plane trip to go to Rome to see, who's her husband? Carlo Pontier. And I was sitting outside all day. I had to forget what I was doing, sitting in my room. Then in the evening, they took us to Mussolini's villa to have dinner. And at that time, I was a very good-looking boy. And she took a shine to me and squeezed my hand. I'm just telling you this from my point of view. But then she was with Peter and all this, but he wanted an excuse to go and see her. And he brought me along as a travelling companion.
I just think, oh, Englishman.
I went and played the piano, and he played the drums. Did a bit of a turn for them, yeah. I think there was an invisible continuum between them. Had the chance presented itself, I think he might have gone for a hook, line, or sinker.
Of course, I adored his sense of humor. Every woman did. Those sparkling flashes of wit that were so characteristic, like the... yes, like the time he spilled a cup of tea down his trousers and said...
Oh, dear. I've gone and spilled tea all down my trousers.
I just think, oh, Englishman.
He never wanted to split up. He didn't want to divorce. He didn't want me to leave. He didn't want to make any waves in that way. He just wanted to be able to do what he liked, wherever he liked, and come back and tell Mama what was going on. And I was supposed to be sympathetic to him. Well, it didn't actually work. So eventually, I guess I left.
I remember Sophia Loren saying one day to me, "What is happiness?" So, you know, and I tried to think about what is happiness. And I suppose it's those brief moments that you can that come to you, that you can say, "My God, I'm really happy today," or something's happened, and then it goes. And I suppose, really, if you had happiness all the time, you'd probably get blasé with it. I mean, you would never appreciate it when it came along. I suppose one lives for the moments, you know. People, I mean, can say quite truthfully that I'm ungrateful speaking like this. I'm not. I mean, you know, I'm very grateful to have done well in this business. And having sort of got there, I achieved this sort of aim, and I'm very happy. But, of course, the other side of one's life, I have two lovely children, wonderful children. And so then, when I'm with them, it's marvelous, everything's great. The periods when I'm on my own, not so great.
I joined him in January 1961 and continued with him until June 77, and that's when we parted company. I was a little concerned because I heard that staff came and went, like turning on the tap and running water. But we prevailed and everything turned out fine.
Sellers sold Chipperfield, his marriage was over, and he moved back to London to a large penthouse flat in Hampstead.
Yeah, I remember in Hampstead, I hadn't been with him that long. And it was during that time that he was very depressed because his wife had left him. There were times when I genuinely thought, as naive as I was then really, that he would commit suicide. He really, so that is when I actually moved in he was there on his own. Mr. and Mrs. Forbes, Brian Forbes, used to come up quite a lot and hold his hand till he went to sleep.
Tonight, we are going to bring you another in the series, Zoo Quest. And the title tonight is Zoo Quest for Peter Sellers. I have in the studio with me tonight two well-known personalities. I'm sure they're all known to viewers. Mr. Herbert John Mortimer, the well-known Lambretta chauffeur. And the...
Peter liked to involve his intimates and build them up into fantastic characters. There was Mario Fabrizi, small part actor, who Peter often passed off as some Ruritanian count, and would dress him up with a sash in the order of, you know, the knees cringe or something like that.
The young prince and princess of my very native country, where most people are natives.
And I was present on several occasions when he would be introduced, and he would never talk, only say, so happy, and sit there and be treated like royalty by people who weren't in on the joke. And the great Bert Mortimer, who was a splendid character, who was Peter's Jeeves, really, his man Friday and Jeeves, and Peter built him up into a legend. He became known to everybody as the great Bert.
He liked people around him that he knew and he felt confident with, faces that he knew. He didn't particularly like to mix with strangers, but those people and he'd have a great time, and then all of a sudden, for no reason, he would maybe go into a depression again. A very complex character altogether.
An address to William Shakespeare by William Topaz McGonagall, poet and tragedian. Immortal William Shakespeare, there's none you can excel. You have drawn out your characters remarkably well, which is delightful for to see enacted upon the stage. For instance, the lovesick Romeo.
Peter was an incurable romantic. It's perfectly true that he did develop an obsession for my wife, but it was so typical of him that he didn't go behind my back.
I'm afraid the world shall never look upon his like again.
He came and admitted it very freely, in a most bizarre way.
Scottish bard and also tragedian, I should say, and that he's written many, many poems. And this is a new book of his poems, more poetic gems selected from the works of William McGonagall.
That he was in love with Nanette and wished to marry her, to which I replied, well, you know, I can't fault your taste. How does Nanette feel about that? And he said, rather engagingly, well, she doesn't know. I thought I would tell you first, which was typically Peter. I mean, in many cases, I think Peter was slightly mad, shall we say.
During this time, Stanley Kubrick had moved to Britain and was an occasional visitor to Hampstead. He had an ambitious new project for Sellers. Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, was to be a devastating satire on the nuclear arms race. Kubrick planned the entire film around Sellers' virtuosity.
He didn't really want to do Kubrick. He didn't really, Strangelove, he didn't really want to do that because Stanley Kubrick used to come round and wait for him to come home every night. Not every night, but trying to talk him into doing this part. They'd done Lolita together. He would come round and he said, oh, this is Kubrick. He keeps bugging me for this. And I think, really, at the end of the day, I think it's one of the best things he's ever done.
When Peter was called onto the set, he would usually arrive walking very slowly and staring morosely. I'd clear the crew from the stage and we would begin rehearsing. As the work progressed, he would begin to respond to something or other in the scene. His mood would visibly brighten and we would begin to have fun. Improvisational ideas began to click and the rehearsals started to feel good. On many of these occasions, I think Peter reached what can only be described as a state of comic ecstasy. I filmed him with many cameras, never less than 3.
Also, when they go down into the mine, everyone would still be alive. There will be no shocking memories. And the prevailing motion will be one of nostalgia for those left behind, combined with a spirit of bold curiosity for the adventure ahead.
When they tortured you, did you talk?
Oh, no, well, I don't think they wanted me to talk, really. I don't think they wanted me to say anything. It was just their way of having a bit of fun, the swines. Strange thing is, they make such bloody good cameras. Now then, Dmitri, you know how we've always talked about the possibility of something going wrong with the bomb. The bomb, Dmitri. The hydrogen bomb. Well, now, what happened is one of our
base commanders, he had a sort of, well, he went a little funny in the head. You know, just a little funny. And he went and did a silly thing. Well, I'll tell you what he did. He ordered his planes to attack your country. Well, let me finish, Dmitri. Let me finish, Dmitri. Well, listen, how do you think I feel about it?
Which of the roles did you deal with first?
Well, I did the English group captain first, then the president, and then Dr. Strangelove. I think I enjoyed playing Dr. Strangelove the most there.
Now, to what extent do you personally contribute toward the characterization of that kind? For example, was it your own idea that this hand would keep grabbing at your own throat, or was that written into the script?
No, that as it happened, that it was a sort of 50-50, but I mean, Stanley's idea was to have a black glove so that his hand was sort of injured in some nuclear experiment. And then I got it further by thinking that the hand was a Nazi while the rest of him had made the compromise, you see, to live in America. But this hand here, you see, was still and used to keep going like this all the time. And then it sort of, you know, got him here, and it went ape, as they say.
Mark Hugh, that wasn't a very happy film, really, in the end, was it? He got fed up with playing all these different parts. And, I mean, rumour has it, or Bert will agree with me, I think that he actually sort of pretended he'd had an accident so he didn't have to do the last part.
On the bomb, yeah.
Once Kubrick had finished shooting Sellers in the 3 roles, he then wanted him to play the bomber pilot, Major King Kong, as well. Sellers went along with the idea for a while.
He was in Pennington Street, and they were rather high curbs, weren't they, if you remember? And this particular day we had I think it was a Buick, it was a left-hand drive thing, so we're over on that side of the road, and he got out, and, he went down, he said, I think I've broken my leg. And he went off to the hospital, and I don't know what, they did x-rays and things, but I don't think he actually broke his leg. But it ended up in plaster. But he really didn't fancy dropping out on the bomb, which Slim Pickens eventually came over and was engaged to do that piece.
When you did the character of Dr. Strangelove, you did that, of course, in a German accent.
Well, I'll tell you something about that. Right. I was stuck, you see, because I didn't want to do just sort of a normal sort of English broken German accent thing. So on the set was a little photographer from New York, a very cute little fellow called Ouija. You must have probably heard of him. And he had a little voice like this, used to walk around a set talking like this most of the time. So I thought, if I put a German accent on top of that, you see, when it suddenly got this thing, you know, there that's going up here and saying that, and so I got into Dr. Strangelove. So really, it's Ouija. I don't know if he knows it, but it's Ouija.
Well, he does now.
Mr. President, I would not rule out the chance to preserve a nucleus of human specimens. It would be quite easy. At the bottom of some of our deeper mine shafts, radioactivity would never penetrate a mine some thousands of feet deep. And in a matter of weeks, sufficient improvements in dwelling space could easily be provided.
How long would you have to stay down there?
Well, that's, you know, cobalt thorium G. Radioactive half-life of... I would think that possibly 100 years.
Hello, Ouija.
Hello, Peter.
Ouija, tell me something.
I want to tell you something. I think you're the world's greatest actor. And I worked in Hollywood for about 12 years. With all the great ones. Svet Skelton, Gregory Peck, Sterling Hayden.
Tell me something. Is Ouija your own name?
No. Ouija, I was nicknamed. Actually, it should be spelled O-U-I-J-A. After the Ouija board. But I changed it because on account of the fan mail, which I should get, or I hope to get. In other words, it's... And of course, the next question is, why did they nickname him Ouija? Now, Ouija was very popular in America by the middle of the 20s. It was a wooden board with letters of the alphabet, and you got messages from the psychic world.
That's
Now,
right. I've seen those boards.
Yeah, they claimed I was psychic. I used to go to a murder before it was committed. You know, in New York, I used to, maybe I'm ahead of myself. But anyway.
I've seen your pictures, many of them, during Crime Incorporated, wasn't it?
Murder Incorporated. As a matter of
Murder.
fact, I was the official photographer. I used to get a weekly check from them.
I sometimes think that in Sellers' case, the chameleon that so enabled him as a performer, as it were, had a double function, that it was something which was a talent, which was marketable, and something which pleased and delighted an audience, but it was also some sort of sanctuary into which he was able to retreat in order to fight off some sort of demons about which we know nothing, or the hideous knowledge of him that he might have been personally a non-entity. People were mystified by the chameleon character of the man and delighted in the humor. In the case of Guinness, who was also a chameleon, there wasn't this wonderfully anarchic, surrealist comedy. He was comic enough in Kind Hearts and Coronets and so forth, but nothing as mad and subversive as the characters that Sellers represented in Strangelove. He was mythically self-transforming in the various roles that he undertook.
Do you feel there's anything psychic about your acting?
Well, I think there is to a certain extent, yes. I don't know about my acting in particular, but I think there is, as far as acting goes, certainly as far as people who really delve into characters, because I think that they, when they're searching for the character, they leave themselves open, as does a medium. And I think that sometimes you can be inhabited by the spirit of perhaps someone who lived at some time or was a bit like the person you're doing, and maybe they come in and use you as a chance to relive again.
Virgo, August the 24th to September the 3rd. Developments concerning a romantic or close personal relationship have taken you by surprise, and you have to face the facts as they really are, and not as you would like them to be. Don't look for quick solutions. Short-term measures will only add to your long-term woes.
Well, I got the impression that Peter was a very, very superstitious man. I lived in Hampstead at the time, and almost opposite my house, Maurice Woodruff lived. Now, Maurice was a clairvoyant and wrote a column in one of the Sunday evening papers, and he was a friend of Peter's. And I used to see Peter's car outside Maurice's house frequently. And I understood at that sort of time that Peter rarely would make a major decision on his career without first going and consulting Maurice.
What seemed to be a complete failure can now be transformed into something profitable and worthwhile. You may still feel bruised and battered by events, but once you accept things as they are, you can create things as they might be. Willingness to forget and forgive is everything.
You'd go and see Maurice, and Maurice used to phone me and said, "Peter's coming to see me." He said, "Is there anything you want me to tell him? Like, if he says anything, should I tell him yes or no?" It's true. I mean, it's hysterical.
And did you used to tell Maurice things to help?
I mean, Maurice would say, "What's he going to do?" And I said, "Well, we've got a script he's looking at, he quite likes." He said, "Should he do it?" I said, "Yeah, he should do it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a good script. It's a good director." And he'd go and tell him.
Sellers received his first Oscar nomination for Dr. Strangelove. The film would establish him as an international star of the first rank. He received a fee of $1 million. He was now as celebrated in America as he was in Britain. Despite appearances, the film had been shot at Shepperton Studios on the edge of London. And in keeping with the status he'd achieved, Sellers had stipulated that he should stay in a suite at the Dorchester during filming. When the shooting was complete, he returned to his Hampstead flat, his inner circle of friends, and weekend visits from his mother and children.
Must have been really difficult for Michael and Sarah, I think, when they were little, because he would shower them with gifts, affection. He used to long for them to come. He would say, oh, the kids are coming to me. Absolutely so excited. And then they get there, and then perhaps Michael would say something that Peter didn't want to hear. And it would be, yes, all right, love. He'd say to us, take them somewhere tomorrow and, you know, just keep them away. And he'd start an argument with them, which is so unfair on a child.
Yes. Sarah and I are going to...
No, just a minute. Now, what are you going to do?
Sarah and I are going to do the bossa nova twist. Yes, we are. Music, please.
The bossa nova twist. Oh, yes. Yes, it's phenomenal.
This afternoon was a... Well, he just got hold of the 16mm camera with live sound when we were supposed to perform. There you go. What's this? This
It doesn't look like I'm enjoying myself very much.
So you're about 5 or 6. And I'll say about 8 or 9.
Just stand there.
Sarah, come on.
You know, always there was, you know, there was do this, do that. Smile, you know, let's have a nice smile now. Let's have a nice smile.
Come on, Mike, smile.
There's not really very much of this, which is just natural footage of us playing or anything. It's all staged. It's all telling us exactly what to do and when to laugh and be happy and enjoy yourself. Have a good time.
Now, Mrs. Sellers, can you tell us what you think of this lovely jug here?
Peg was an extraordinary character. I mean, she was a typical Jewish mama, and she used to put on airs and graces when it was anything to do with her son.
She'd come on visits, she'd sit there like the Grand Duchess.
And then she'd do something which would annoy him so much that he had to get rid of her immediately.
Then he was back to London,
you know.
Changed a lot, as you can see.
Yes, I'm
But
sure.
he often did disguise himself as various things.
Yes.
And that is George II in his famous disguise as a silver coffee pot.
That's amazing. I've never bought a piece of George.
Well, it would start in a very innocuous way, like, I mean, she would say, I love you, Peter, and he would say, I love you, Peg. But I really love you, Peter. But I really love you, Mother. And that would go on and build until it became a row. It was very odd to witness.
He used to be quite terrible to her at times. And yet, probably it was the only woman in his life that really meant anything to him. I mean, even to the extent that after she had gone, he used to have conversations with her. He would go into a room and talk to her for quite some time. He didn't know what it was. Peggy was preaching, as most Jewish mothers do, you know, about being a good Jewish boy, where she had gone and married out of the faith herself. So poor Pete didn't have a clue of what he was supposed to be.
Should you have something that you're not quite sure of,
Yes.
and you need some money,
Send it to Mrs.
Oh, yes, you
Sellers.
yes.
She will do her best to value it for you and give you a fair price.
Yes, very fair.
Thank you, and good night.
Good night, and thank you.
I also think it was not knowing who he was that made him so good as I wasn't going to say an impressionist, that's totally wrong, as an actor, because he could become other characters with much more ease because he didn't know who he was himself. He didn't have himself to play, as against a Gary Cooper who was always Gary Cooper, you know.
Describe Mr. Sellers.
It's a difficult question. I mean, one always sees him as a different character, you know. He really absorbs himself in the character. So
Yes.
one never really knows Peter Sellers.
Peter, when I meet a well-known actor for the first time, I always feel I know him a little because I've seen him and I feel I know a little about his character. But with you, you are a complete stranger. Do you hide your identity behind the character you play on purpose?
To see me as a person on the screen would be one of the dullest experiences you could ever wish to experience. But as soon as I can get hold of something, I can get hold of a character or a voice or some makeup or something, I can then use that as a shield, get within it, and hope to make the character live, act as a medium, if you like, and let the character come out through me.
Even before the release of Dr. Strangelove, such was Sellers' status and reputation that Hollywood began to talk in terms of a Peter Sellers film. On one promotional trip to America, he was offered 25 film parts. But the one that would affect the rest of his life was a supporting role in a lavish international comedy well into production in Rome.
We must find that woman. What was that, what you say?
Well, difficult? I think he lived a great part of his life in hell. See, that's difficult. I think that most comedians, comic actors, whatever you want to call them, are not very happy people, so it is difficult to be that. I think that he was very facile and terribly talented, so it was not difficult necessarily for him to find a character or to come up with a funny notion and things like that. That was all part of him. But difficult to live on this planet, yeah. I think it was very difficult. We discovered that we were soulmates as far as a certain kind of comedy and our favorite people in the comedy world. I had seen, I think, It's All Right, Jack. In a matter of a day, a matter of a few hours, we were simpatico. We were together in our quest for that character. And Peter said, could we employ some of those things in this? I'd like to make it a little more mine.
May I have a cigarette, my darling?
Yes, of course, madame.
There, my love. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Scotch on the rocks.
Spinner?
Oh, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. Say, I'm looking for my uncle, Sir Charles Littman.
Darling.
May I get you some water?
Hold your hands over your head.
Yes, my darling, and bend forward.
Oh, darling, I'm sorry.
Are you all right?
You all right, my darling? Hmm? What? My darling? Yes, darling.
The picture started, and the two people that Blake had cast first were David Niven and myself. And Peter Ustinov was to play Inspector Clouseau. The starring role in The Pink Panther was really David's part. And Peter Ustinov turned it down. And Blake said he had seen and knew about Peter. And I had known about Peter because Peter had done The Mouse that Roared. And so Peter came down to Rome, and that was the beginning of a great love affair between Blake and Peter. It was such a great thrill for me because I saw that whole thing come together. You know, Peter had such a circus going on within his head that he could do so many different things.
I hate everything I do so much that I always think, well, I'm going to got to go one better before I die because, I mean, you know, I don't remember by all that lot. So I always think that there's something left in me. I mean, I know there is. I know there's something sort of in here somewhere that I want to get out. I think probably do it to people like Blake, who really understand me, or Stanley Kubrick, who also understands me, who seems to know what goes on in here. I mean, the whole bit on Strangelove, that came out of just an idea, the arm bit, you know?
Yes. Yes.
It's just when you get with people who say, who can't communicate. And then you think, next time round, I'm going to do it, you know? Next time round, I really do it.
Yes. Are you going to find the kind of fulfillment you're looking for, though, in your work or in a relationship with a woman, do you think?
I don't think I ever find it in a relationship with a woman. Because the only time that you're really happy is at the time that you're doing it. Not when the film comes out, when you're preparing for the film, but at the moment you're doing the take on the floor. And when you do it, and that moment comes out of you, and you've done it, and you remember that, that's why Blake keeps his outtakes, you see. That's the time when the achievement, the full feeling of achievement comes out.
Jacques,
Yes, madame?
I really don't think it's such a good idea.
You mean there's not helping?
I'm afraid not. I think I'll just take a sleeping pill.
Very well, my darling, I'll get it for you.
And why don't you take one yourself? You need the rest, you know.
He allowed you, the audience, to have the moment rather than him taking it from you. And you could see into that. You could see that. That was very special.
Yes, I think perhaps I will do.
And he would put the violin down, and he'd let the audience know that he was going to go back there. And when he did, something was going to happen that was going to be very special.
Yeah, my darling?
Thank you, my angel.
Thank you, my angel.
My poor Jack.
No matter. When you've seen one Stradivarius, you've seen them all.
That Clouseau character was just so special for him, and because he was two people, and he had the ability to sort of stand off and look at this fool that was doing these things and be totally amused by him. He had a kind of strange objectivity about this character. And I'm not at all sure that he had that about the other characters. Maybe to some extent, but not as involved, immersed as he was in Clouseau.
When he returned from Rome, he decided to move into the Dorchester, into the most expensive suite.
It was like a home from home, wasn't it? Every time he moved, which he did lots of, either because he was leaving a wife or gaining another one or whatever, he would always come home to roost at the Dorchester.
It was better than home from home,
exactly, because he
really,
had all the comforts and everything done for him.
That's right. In this actual room, we used to have stuff spread out all over. And he used to say, be careful when you come in because of the wires here and the wires there, and mind that stand.
His performance in The Pink Panther was creating so much excitement in Hollywood that even before its release, he and Blake Edwards started work on a sequel, Shot in the Dark, in which he co-starred with Elke Sommer.
Peter had something. He had this incredible sadness about him, which touched me sometimes tremendously. It did not appear to me that Peter had any friends. He'd never stressed the fact that he felt loved. I think he stressed the fact that he was not loved, or he felt that he was not loved by people. He asked me to marry him, believe it or not, even though no physicality, nothing had passed between us. I think he was just desperate to marry. I said, Peter, I like you very much as a person, but I don't love you. He says, but that'll come. I always got the feeling of a very lonely man who would do practically anything to have somebody who's his. One morning he came and says, I'm going to meet somebody with the initials BE. I said, oh, okay. Who says so? He says, Morris Woodruff. I said, all right, where? He says, he didn't know. And by God, he married Brick Eklund. A very short time after we finished the picture.
Well, Mr. Sellers, this has been a pretty whirlwind romance, hasn't it, to say the least? Can you tell us the story of how you met Miss Eklund?
In brief, I was staying at the Dorchester while I was doing a film, and one evening I looked in the paper and saw Brit's picture that she had just arrived in England, and I thought what I saw was very good, and I thought that I would like to meet what I saw. And so a friend of mine said, how strange, she happens to be staying at this hotel. I said, where? So he said, just down the corridor. So down I go. I said, would you like to have a drink? Or words to that effect. And do you come here often? And things like that. And she said, yes, I'd love to have a drink. So in she came, and I took a lot of pictures of her. And before I knew it, when she went away, I missed her terribly. And I thought, well, you know, this is it.
At the time he met Brit and the relationship built, I was very, very happy for him. I'd never seen him so happy. I'd only been with him, what, a couple of years at that point in time. But he had something to do, he was occupied, he had a big interest, he had a lovely lady on his arm. And she genuinely, as far as I could see, loved him. So I thought, oh, this is great, you know, at least it made life a lot easier for everybody around him.
The final part in this arena profile follows next on BBC4, while on Thursday night, Geoffrey Rush stars in an Emmy award-winning portrayal at 10, The Life and Death of Peter Sellers.